Hey everybody, Richard Bliss Brooke here with yet another Network Marketing Gurus podcast. And today we have my favorite attorney. Does everybody have a favorite attorney? I have a favorite attorney in the network marketing community, and I snagged him for an interview today because he is going to bring a breadth of wisdom and light and fresh air and inspiration to all of us in the network marketing community in the form of pure education from the legal and business standpoint. And that's none other than Kevin Thompson, who is a network marketing guru / attorney. Say hi, Kevin.
Hey, everyone. Richard, thanks for having me on your program. It's an honor to be here.
Well, you're used to this because anybody who's anybody in the network marketing, direct selling space wants to interview you. And you are the first person that we go to when anything happens. Anybody gets sued, the FTC or the SEC or the FDA or the EPA or the SPCA, anybody with a 3 or 4 letter acronym in their name does anything, everybody goes to your Facebook page, which, by the way, folks, is facebook.com/MLM legal. You're going to want to set your notifications on that page because when Kevin goes live on that page, something is happening. There is something deep to talk about in the network marketing community. He is, in my opinion, and most other people's opinion in the network marketing space, the most prolific, the most wise, the most engaged, the most connected, the most astute attorney in the network marketing space. And his focus is not, business contracts, and he can probably do all that stuff, but his gift to our profession is the regulatory affairs part of network marketing legal. And of course, that's our biggest nemesis because we're a bunch of cowboys and cowgirls out screaming our heads off when we probably shouldn't be. And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the regulatory environment of the direct selling network marketing space. And we're going to talk about Kevin's experience, which is interesting and deep and comes from a place that you wouldn't expect an attorney comes from in the network marketing space, which is why he has so much wisdom. And we're going to talk about his life and some of just the cool things he has going on. So the name of his firm is ThompsonBurton.com. So go there, check him out. He is a frequent expert on CNBC and Bloomberg TV. And so we just love him because Kevin's the only attorney in the network marketing space that really gets our profession. And when you hear his story and where he came from, you'll understand how he gets who we are. He gets where our Achilles heel is. He gets where we get out of bounds and why we get out of bounds. He gets it from a corporate side, from a distributor side. He gets it from a regulatory affairs side, like he can see it through the eyes of the FTC. He's just deeply connected and gets our whole profession. And that's why he's our choice for network marketing guru. So Kevin, here's my first question, which we're going to start, has nothing to do with network marketing, so we can get some context of who you are and how you ended up in that law office. Tell us first about your family. I know you're a big athlete. Your wife's a big marathoner. You got 4 great kids. Who are you as a human being, and where are you?
Franklin, Tennessee.
Franklin, yeah. Franklin is not Nashville.
It's about 10 miles away.
Yeah, but that's a whole different demographic there in Franklin.
Well, I've never been asked the question, as far as who I am on a personal level. So I really appreciate the question. The family is the reason why I work so hard. I view our very survival on my ability to produce results for clients. I mean, I take it very personally. It wasn't until my son was born, which was 13 years ago, when I really got the itch and felt the need to do my own firm and to start my own company. Because a lot of people, they want to tell kids what to do, right? But they don't do it themselves. We all want the younger generations to take risk and be brave and to push themselves, but we don't want to do it ourselves. And I made a decision very early that I want to be an example, even if it means I'm just going to be roadkill. And I've had some business endeavors that have been just disasters in those early days. But, you mentioned sports. The one thing that I learned a lot about process and pain and struggle and effort and compounding, which is a concept that you very well understand. I learned a lot about those concepts in my days as a decathlete. I did decathlon in college, and I was pretty good. I got All-American honors, which means I was a top 8 American finisher in 2002.
Wow. Yeah.
And a lot of schools, an All-American would be the star of the team. For me, I was never the alpha, because Tennessee, the University of Tennessee, was such a great program. We were a national champion program, and we had Tom Pappas was a friend, still is a friend of mine, and he was a mentor of mine. He went to the Olympics 3 times. So I got my butt kicked by him every single day. And when he graduated, there was a younger person that showed up that got All-American 4 times and would go on to win the national championship in 2003. And so I was always getting beat, but still had to constantly work just to do the best that I could do with what I had. And I learned early just the importance of being patient and letting the process work, and that you might be bad today, you might embarrass yourself today, but day after day after day, training 6 days a week, 3 hours a day, over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, you maximize whatever you have. And I take that into my legal practice. The lawyer that I am today is not going to be the lawyer that I am 5 years from now, because I'm constantly looking for ways to push myself, put myself in uncomfortable situations. Sometimes I get a butt kicking, but I'm constantly learning and developing, and that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, Stephen Covey's "Sharpen Your Axe." One of my mentors and good friends here in Hawaii, DeWitt Jones, says, "Don't prove yourself, improve yourself every day." So one of the things I talk about in my coaching and training, Kevin, is compounding consistency. And it's kind of a play off of the compounded growth of a sales organization, the exponential growth of a sales organization. If you get regular and consistent duplication, what did you learn about working out or practicing your art 3 hours a day, 6 days a week? How did the habit of that consistent practice compound in your skill level, in your ability? How did you see that layer upon layer upon layer of ability grow because you were consistent?
It's a great question. And when you mentioned layer upon layer, it's that slight edge, and there's actually a book titled Slight Edge, where a lot of our competition, they trained hard too, but maybe it was 2.5 hours a day and it was 5 days a week. They got Saturday and Sunday off. We only got Saturday off, and that little bit extra just set the tone. And when we showed up at competition, everybody knew we were the best. And that little, here's how it would work. I think my old coach was one of the best decathlon coaches in the country, Bill Webb. And he didn't always start off with great decathletes, but eventually the good decathletes found him, and he was able to recruit them. And success begets success. And so he landed a Brian Brophy, who would be a national champion, or an Eric Long, who would go to the Olympics in the 90s, in 96. And he was able to get these guys, and they did really well in that system, which meant more good guys came. And the expectation was just tremendous. And so just because if you show up and you have talent, for me, uh, it helped that there was always somebody better because I had somebody to shoot for. And
Right.
if you slacked
Somebody to
off,
chase. Right.
if you slacked
Somebody to be
off,
inspired by.
yeah, it was an example like this. If I commit, maybe I can be like this guy. And if you didn't commit, there were some athletes that, not many, but there were some. They were a little lazy, right? They took a rep off. You knew who they were. You could feel it, and they were kind of isolated, right? I mean, the price of admission to being part of the tribe was you had to make some tremendous sacrifices, and if you didn't make the sacrifices, you really weren't part of the group. And so
Yeah.
there was just a stream and a flow that was established that you hop in, you hang on as best you can, you do the work, and you were rewarded for it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, think about that when it comes to building your network marketing career. We're going to get into some legal stuff, but you got some real juicy wisdom here about what it takes to excel in network marketing. You know, there's millions of kids every year that want to be successful, recognized athletes. They want to be national champions. They want to be, you know, top 10. But are they willing to do the work? And most of them aren't, right? So when we look at our income disclosure statements and we hear these, only 1% of the people that are in network marketing make any money. Well, what percentage are actually doing the work? My experience is if you do the work every day in a good company, you're going to eventually, sooner or later, you're going to have plenty of success. The issue is whether or not you're willing to do the work. So you're getting these lessons from an attorney. So I'm curious, Kevin, how did you go from University of Tennessee athlete to network marketing attorney? What happened after law school or college? What led you here?
Yeah, sure. Well, nobody goes to law school saying, I'm going to be a network marketing lawyer, right? People, just the ebbs and flows of life, and it happens. But people say, I'm going to be a litigator. I'm going to be a contract lawyer. That they have an image of what a lawyer looks like based on what they see on TV, and they make these decisions. And I was one of them. I was going to be a litigator and help people. And I did really well in law school, and got a job at a good firm, and I litigated for 2 years. And then I realized, I was with good people, but it was not the right model for me. I just, again, this goes back to my experience with the track. It's one thing to climb the ladder. You have to make sure it's leaning against the right wall. And
Yep.
I realized really fast at my first firm, even if I get my name on the wall, I'm the person at this firm. They don't have great lifestyles or great incomes. And I thought I can do better. So I started to look at doing my own thing very early, probably too early. And at that time, I got a phone call from a person that Robert Dickey, my brother-in-law, and that's how I became chief legal officer for Orrin Woodward, who was one of Amway's top distributors.
Yeah.
Now,
so
yeah,
that's interesting. People got to just grab onto that distinction. So wait a minute. There's actually a distributor whose business is so big, he's got his own chief legal officer.
It was massive. Yeah, it was massive. And he actually had a separate income opportunity associated with his business. Hence the kind of the network marketing angle. There was some friction between him and Amway at the time, which is another reason why he needed an in-house lawyer to sort of manage that relationship. So I met the folks in Ada. I went to Grand Rapids a bunch of times. Just really fast forwarding, litigation happened where he was terminated. He sued Amway. Amway sued him back. It was just massive, unleash hell kind of effort. And I got to hire the lawyers that helped, worked with them, got really good experience in that whole process. My son was born, and then there came a point where, again, climbing the ladder, but not much of a long-term opportunity there. No potential to benefit from the growth of a new company, nothing like that. I'm
Right.
like, you know what? It's time for me to take my destiny in my own hands. proved to myself that I could do it, proved to my kids, my son, my wife that, you know what, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to catch dinner and figure this stuff out. And then, so I started the law office of me in an apartment, just with a computer and an invoicing software and very basic tools. And I didn't know the demand for a lawyer in the space back in this was 2008, really late 2007. So I didn't know the demand that was there, but I had a suspicion that there was a need for lawyers. There just weren't that many lawyers in the profession at that time. So I created content, right? I was young. I was 28? And this is right when social media was starting to take off, when adults were starting to do it. So I was creating content that was spreading. People were able to see Kevin Thompson, even though I wasn't part of the community. I didn't kiss the ring at DSA meetings. But the content spread. My competition, they weren't doing anything because generally lawyers, they don't like to push out their thoughts publicly because that's risky. Well, when you have nothing,
and you've done a lot of that. You've done a lot of writing, a lot of Facebook Lives. Why do you do that? What's the motive behind putting out content for free to educate and inspire?
Because it's how I started, and I view it as a very important mental exercise. It keeps me grounded.
Yep.
And so I'm reading a book about Austrian economics. It's called The Tao of Capital. And there's of course a talk about Henry Ford. And Henry Ford obsessed about every piece of the business, every part of the assembly line, every machine. And he, of course, had the stopwatch and he timed people. And it was always about improving the process. And he had a very micro management view of the process. For me, I think it's vitally important. It's sort of my connection to the ground, skin in the game, so to speak. Where number one, if you want to learn something very well, you need to teach it. And so when there's a subject, when I get repetitive questions about something in the industry, I think, you know what, now is a good time to really dive deep, go through that misery of the research and learn the details, and then create content that people can understand. And that, in my opinion, gives me an advantage. It forces me into the material. Number two, regarding the Facebook content, that's how I get feedback, right? So I push out a message, or sometimes it's as simple as a question. I've got 25,000 followers. I get feedback from real people that are experiencing real circumstances in real time. And I'm able to learn from that. I'm able to sort of shift my view on things sometimes, or get a feel for what's going on out there in the industry. Another boring example, all this academic stuff. Hercules, one of his 12 trials that he had to do was he had to wrestle a guy. I think his name was I forget his name, Aesop maybe, or something like that, Antietam, or I'm not sure. That was a Civil War battle. But this guy got his power from the earth, and he never lost a wrestling match. And how Hercules beat him was by lifting him off the ground and then crushing him, right? So when that guy lost connection with reality, lost connection with the earth, he was beatable. I create content, I do videos, I do Facebook posts because it keeps me connected to the ground. A lot of lawyers, they're just in an ivory tower, not all of my competitors, most of them. And these litigators at these big firms, they have no idea, none, what it's like to be in the field. They have no idea what the people in the field are thinking. For them, it's just theoretical. It's just what they see in emails. It's just what they see in briefs. They don't see the disputes. They don't see the heartaches. They don't see the stories behind the effort, right, in the field. I like it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're probably being coached and guided by the in-house counsel, which also probably doesn't know anything about what's going on in the field.
Right.
And the in-house counsel, of course, is probably has a bias and an agenda of, hey, this is what's really going on. This is what we want you to know. And what you have, Kevin, because you have a holistic connection with our whole profession, is you have a much closer relationship with the truth, which is, you got version A, version B, and then there's the version in the middle. You got the whole gamut. So gives you much, much better wisdom when you're dealing with a client. So tell me about your clients, Kevin. Corporations in network marketing, the ownership, the corporate, the C-suite, that part of our business, from a regulatory standpoint, which basically, for those of you listening, means those government agencies that don't like how we do business and are always messing with us. So what is missing in the ownership suite in network marketing that we haven't done a better job of restoring our reputation? What's the thinking there? Like, who do you like, and what do you like about some owners, and what do you dislike about some owners, and how are they like you, and how do they keep getting in trouble, and are there some that don't, and what can we learn from them?
There's a lot to unpack, and I think it's a fantastic question. First, the kinds of people that I represent. I had an epiphany, might have been a year or two ago, where I realized I don't connect well with everybody, and I'm okay with that. There are certain companies with certain political situations, and they reach a certain size where there's just massive pent up arrogance, where they sort of know, and they have a team of lawyers that are staffed employees, and they tend to be a little insecure, candidly. Not all of them,
Yep.
some, and they know everything. And so, asking for help is sort of perceived as weakness. And so I'm not able to connect with some of these bigger companies. Now, with that being said, some of the bigger firms that do get that business, like Kelly Dry is an example, great firm. There's a great lawyer that I like there, John Villafranco. He leads the American Bar Association panel on FTC and antitrust policy, right? He does that sort of stuff. And they are massively expensive. So there's a part of the market that he'll never get that I've got, right? The medium-sized to smaller companies. And I think the business is actually better at the altitude that I'm at, but he's able to get the massive companies. And so I really stopped pursuing those opportunities. You can't get everything. And I'm at a place in my career where I can be, more targeted with who I want to work with anyways, thankfully. To get to your question, one of your questions, what are the owners missing? It depends. What comes to mind is, number one, they lack a long-term view of compounding. So a lot of owners, they want it now, and it's growth at all cost. And so what they'll do is it's faux compliance. The somewhat experienced people, they know compliance is important, but they'll just give it lip service, and they know that the rules are being broken. It's very short-term thinking. And what happens is when a lot of founders, it's growth at all costs, they suck money out of the company, they consume it. And I don't see enough people investing money back into the company. And so they focus on their one product that they launched with. And, they have a team of internal people, but they're just not really thinking long-term and scaling their internal enterprise. And that's where a lot of founders really get screwed up. It's one thing to attract a field. That's really where all their energy is, where in reality, the field is a very important partner in the growth of the company. But you can't just give the child cake and ice cream every day. You have to be an adult. You have to have standards. And you also have to have an eye towards what I call building an enterprise, right? Building an office environment where you have help. There is a team of people and they meet for lunch every other day and they bounce ideas off each other. That's lacking in our profession, unfortunately, because it's so easy to spin up certain things and launch a company, but they don't want the responsibility of running a company, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
That's a
it
problem.
does. So you've interacted with a lot of sales leaders, which is the other half of the equation. So, almost always, not always, but seems like the majority of the cases, the infractions, the violation happens at the sales leader level. They're the ones out there making claims. Sometimes the companies do it, which is really dumb. But so what do you see in the sales leaders that you've talked to and worked with and listened to? What's going on with them that they still, after so many warnings and so much education and so many pleas from the other side of the industry, what's going on with them that they still make irresponsible claims?
It goes back to cost benefit analysis. And that's what they do. They measure the pros and the cons, and I think the term is transfer of risk. Whereas if the rep makes an inappropriate claim, number one, what are the odds they're going to get caught?
Right.
Kind of small in a lot of cases. And number two, if they get caught, they don't really pay the penalty. It's the company that pays the ultimate penalty. Maybe a rep gets suspended or educated, in some cases terminated. But for the most part, termination is rare. And so I think there's an economic incentive for sales leaders to exaggerate because they're rewarded for it. Because unfortunately, it tends to work when you have a message of easy money, right? It appeals to people's lesser selves, which I think is actually one of the biggest risks facing our profession. We can talk about that later. But this need for immediate gratification, a lot of people have that. They don't want to think long term. They don't want to think in terms of suffering and pain and struggle. They want it now. And so sales leaders are tapping into that. In some cases, not all. Sales leaders are tapping into that when they promise easy money. That's a problem.
Yeah. And it's so clear and articulate the way you lay that out. They're probably thinking, what are the odds that I'm going to get caught? What they're not thinking about is, well, the odds are pretty good that the company's going to get caught for something I did if they're, promoting baseless claims on social media. Because unfortunately, all the government has to do today is Google. They can Google anything they want, financial freedom / name of the company. The current buzz thing that you've been reporting so brilliantly on is, COVID-19 / immune system / name of the company. And they don't have to regulate the way they did 20 or 30 years ago, where they had to investigate. Now all I have to do is Google, and they can see every hit, every claim in that category associated with that particular company. And the company is the one that's going to get the heat. And sometimes that heat costs everybody, right? Everybody in the whole company.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it depends on how bad. The FTC obviously has the tools to put a company out of business before the company even knows it's been sued. So it's dangerous. Regulators, Lois Greisman in particular, she's the head of their marketing division, something. She used this language, and this is language that I use. The model is a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to expand a network the way that we do. It's a privilege to be able to sell product through networks of people. With that privilege comes responsibility. And the way she's describing it, they're not happy with companies properly policing the field. So for the longest time, companies have really sort of just said, hey, we can't control these knuckleheads. Well, you can't benefit on the one hand overstatements and improper income claims and disease claims. You can't benefit on the one hand and then say, well, it's not my problem on the other. It's very much your problem. And so companies, I'm encouraged in the sense that I think companies are starting to see the importance of educating the field of what to do and what not to do. And they're trying to monitor what's happening out there. They understand that M word is very important, monitoring. It wasn't really a thing 3 years ago, which our friend Jonathan Gillum has really cornered that market with the software where that's their sole function is to monitor claims. So I'm seeing improvement. And also I'm seeing improvement from the on the consumer side, that the people that join companies, they're looking for more what I call trust signals. Like they know what scammy short term looks like now. So they're looking for more stable, secure, more resources. They're looking, they have a better sense of what is superior out there in the market. You're seeing fewer crypto scams, for example.
Right. Yeah.
Because the market's immune.
So if you could wave a magic wand, Kevin, you go into a company, any typical company with too short term of thinking and infractions in the marketplace that is trying, as you said, they're trying. If you could wave a magic wand over the entire profession or just one particular company where the whole concept of try is thrown out the window, and let's just do it. Let's just spend whatever percentage of our total working capital, money, bandwidth, time, energy, not just on growing the company, but growing it in such a way that we protect the growth and we also protect the business model. What are some of the things that you would have a company do right now and do it fully and completely, like full on execution, to ensure, like the opposite of try, but actually ensure compliance along with continued growth? What would you mandate if you could?
Yeah, I think a lot of the bad behavior you see in the field is a symptom of a disease, and the disease in some companies, it's lack of value in product. And so if the field is ill-equipped with product, if they have bad product, they have to cheat. They have to make exaggerated income claims to recruit, and they have to teach the importance of getting on auto ship and recruiting people to get on auto ship. And so, number one, invest money in good R&D. Like stop, every founder, there's not every founder, a lot of founders have this arrogance about them where they think that they can just place a phone call to a product formulator. Hey, what's the next hot thing? And they can just private label it and sell it. Really thinking through product, because if it's good product, you can get customers, right? I call it, it's a keystone habit, right? It's a habit that leads to other consequences down the line. You can have good customers, and you've talked about this a lot, made a really good impression on me, actually, the importance of retention. If retention is improved, you can exponentially change your destiny over a 2-year period. So improving customer sales, improving retention really hinges on strong product value proposition, number one. Number two, I'd say it's having a hard look at the compensation plan design and not revamping it. I'm not suggesting that, but looking for ways to reward better habits, right? Not just rewarding your big recruiters, and I believe you wrote about this in your manifesto, but rewarding people that sell stuff, right? I mean, Uber and the gig economy, they accumulated 48 million people in a 5-year period, right? In our profession, we've got less than 2 million people. We've been around for 130 years.
And they don't have any 7-figure earners.
They don't. And our plans make that possible. But I think there's a bigger need in our market to get people to $500 a month as quick as possible.
Yes,
so finding opportunities in the plan for that, I think, is the holy grail.
Yep. You're so right. People don't quit when they're making $500 a month. And the biggest challenge we actually don't have a recruiting challenge or a customer acquisition challenge in our profession. Some companies are better than others. The problem in the customer arena, just like you said, products are mediocre and they're overpriced. And so we have a retention problem.
Right.
And then on the distributor side, we don't have that big of trouble recruiting people. You know, what are some of the DSA quotes? We bring in almost 500,000 people a week around the world into network marketing. The problem is almost all of them quit. Why? They don't make any money. They don't quit because they're not making 7 figures.
Right.
They're quit because they're not making $500.
Yeah.
And it's an easy fix. Yeah. So what do you think the biggest challenge is for our profession right now? Like, what's the big elephant in the room? What do we have to hunker down and do something about? What's the heavy lifting?
This is where, you know, it's more opinion and less analysis. I think there's an idea virus somewhere in the culture. And maybe we're all part of the problem. Maybe it's the young folks. But the idea currently that I'm seeing is that markets aren't supposed to go down. Markets can only go up. If I experience struggle in my professional career, it's not my fault. It's the system's fault. It's the process's fault. And in some cases, there are systemic problems. But with the younger generation, there's this feeling of, and I'll use the word entitlement, where, this concept of universal basic income. I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm not trying to get political here. But this idea that everybody deserves a basic amount of income, regardless of the value that you produce, just by breathing air. That idea is growing. And you can say that the idea of capitalism, where in order for capitalism to work, people have to believe that it's fair, that if you do the work and you take the risk, you're rewarded. And a lot of people don't feel that it's fair. They view the bailouts on Wall Street. They view the airline companies that did whatever they did and bought back their own stock, and they got bailed out by taxpayers. People see this stuff, and they're thinking, this whole capitalism thing is bullshit. So I think this idea is really going to be a challenge for our profession, because our profession is about taking risk and assuming responsibility, taking ownership of results. If you fail, it's because you didn't try hard enough or didn't learn enough. That idea, I think there's more information on the other side, meaning, no, you failed because you're a victim, right? Network marketing, just by nature, isn't fair. You should have kept on. You should have held on to your, $500 that you lost. Right. I think that idea is very, very dangerous, and I don't know how we overcome that as a profession, because it goes to the very heart of the fabric of our country.
Yeah, and which is moving towards everybody gets a ribbon.
Yeah.
And actually, the definition of fairness is everybody gets the same thing.
And I think that idea is pretty dangerous, and that's going to hurt us. I don't know how we fight against it. I tell people, to open up a franchise, a cycling studio franchise, it costs $500,000. That is not an exaggeration. $500,000 to open up a cycle bar franchise. And that's before you make a single dollar. Yep. And franchising, there's protections and disclosure laws and all that stuff, but that's whatever. The disclosures in these documents, who knows if they're accurate or not. My point is, you want to change your life, period. It takes risk. And in network marketing, suppose somebody gives it a go and they don't make the money for whatever reason, bad program, or they're not very good for whatever reason. Maybe they're out $2,000. Maybe. At least they didn't blow $500,000. So the risk reward that our profession offers is compelling, but it's a form of virtue signaling now to sort of protect what they're called victims, right? I care about people, so I'm going to protect them, and they're not losers, they're not failures, they're winners that got scammed. You're going to see more and more content like that, and that's going to hurt us.
You're dancing you're very light-footed dancing around the liberal conservative political agenda. That's quite adept at you, Kevin. I didn't realize you could tiptoe like that. Nice work.
My whole goal is to piss everybody off.
Well, I mean, I hear you, and I think that's such a powerful message, because the network marketing model is like the purest form of free enterprise and entrepreneurialism. And hey, right, nobody's doing anything for you in network marketing. You got to do it all, and yet you have so little at risk. And you're right, the regulatory culture in our country is protect everybody from themselves. And yet, if we were coaching people on how to live your life and develop your life and develop your strengths and create adventures, just like you said, you went out just to demonstrate to your kids, hey, this is what's possible, and this is what it's like. And I may, be a yard sale on my lips, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to rebound. I'm going to pick myself up by the bootstraps and go at it again and go at it again and go at it. That's a message a certain segment of our population, leadership, wants to give America. And unfortunately, there's another America that wants everybody to stay at home, duct taped to a chair, so they can't lose $500 or skin their knee, or say they tried something and failed. And so, that's a place for us to fight. I think in network marketing is fight for the free enterprise opportunity. Fight for fair is the compensation plan, and everybody has the same comp plan, same product. You either go build it or you don't. So where do you see the profession in the next 5 to 10 years play? As we wrap this up, play futurists. Don't go negative on me. These interviews are supposed to inspire. I don't want everybody to quit my podcast because you like doom and gloomed them. What do you see for the next 5 to 10 years? How do we need to play the game?
We'll be in business in five or 10 years, and there will be growth. The good news is the Federal Trade Commission, if they had it their way, they would change the law. Because there's an idea over there where if people fail, it's not their fault, it's a systemic problem. Whereas as an athlete, I know that's not the case. So, but they can't make the law, and so our profession is going to be fine. And what I'm seeing good things. I'm seeing e-commerce trends growing. We've been doing that for years, and we do it well. I think that the need for economic opportunity is going to grow where people work remotely and work from home. You're going to see more people moving out of big urban environments and trying to find ways to supplement income. So I see various trends that I like. I like where I'm positioned personally as a professional. I'll be honest, in early March, when things got weird with the pandemic, I didn't know. I was worried. But now I'm fairly excited because we survived that pandemic, and I understand it's still going on and there's still risk, but it just shows how resilient we are. This is a gritty group of people, and I remember telling my wife that in mid-March. My to draw on an earlier point that I made, I was never the alpha in track. There was always somebody better than me. Walt Burton of Thompson Burton, he's better than me. He's a phenomenal lawyer. And just a good man and good at what he does. He does commercial real estate. And so his business really depends on, money from the sky, right? Federal Reserve, interest rates, that sort of stuff. And he took a hit, not a big hit, but he took a hit. I told Sharon, the people that I represent, they're gritty. They're going to
Yep.
find a way.
Yep.
They're going to create opportunities for people that need it. And so I'm bullish on our profession over the next 5 years. I think the best years are ahead of us. But we have to be intelligent with how number one, you have to recognize the enemy for what it is. And the enemy is this idea of entitlement and this form of virtue signaling where they just want to protect everybody that loses money. I'm a big believer in education through experience, and sometimes that means you get your butt kicked and you learn from it. I was in Amway long time ago. I made a little bit of money, but the stuff that I learned was valuable. I attribute a lot of my success to those days in the trenches back then. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish.
Yeah, well, me too. And doesn't mean it won't change. This profession's different than it was in the 70s, different than the 80s, different than the 90s. Every decade brings, a little different flavor. But like you said, I think that's really profound what you said, Kevin. Here with no notice at all for anyone, all of a sudden the business environment in the United States, North America, around the world is just halted. It just comes to a screeching halt. Like every live event on the books, including national convention with tens of thousands of people and millions of investment at stake, all of a sudden that's all over, right? And then, okay, so now how do we direct sell? How do we word of mouth market? And yes, of course, people could go digital, they could go online, but people were so freaked out in the month of March that I think a lot of people were just frozen. But look how the profession pivoted. Now there's a permanent change we see there's not going to be such an addiction in the future to live events, which are very costly. Human capital, actual capital, the time, the attention, the stress, and companies are getting a tenfold viewership at a tenth the cost just by doing stuff online. That's a permanent breakthrough that's going to save a lot of management health and welfare. It's going to skyrocket our profession. And like you said, we're going to get better at e-marketing and digital marketing and social marketing. And why? Because the pandemic forced us to, and we don't cave as a profession. We have grit. Really, those are huge nuggets, Kevin, and your final words. I do want to tell you, though, that I heard you say that because of the pandemic, the opportunity is better. And so I have that recorded. It's a very timely claim where you use the pandemic to make, I think, an income claim. Did you hear that?
I did hear it. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're referring to the FTC, singling out companies that are leveraging the pandemic when they're promoting an income opportunity. And, but here we're not promoting a particular company.
Yeah, I know. I'm just giving
in general. Yeah.
Yes. Well, as you can tell, folks, there's a lot here, a lot of depth. You probably are listening to this going, wow, I could spend a couple of days asking this guy questions and I would learn a mountain full of not only network marketing distinctions, but just life and business and leadership and courage and ingenuity. You're a great man, Kevin Thompson. I am honored to call you a friend and a colleague in this journal of capitalism in its purest form. Thank you so much for joining us on the Network Marketing Podcast. And remember, folks, you can set your notifications for facebook.com/MLM legal. So when Kevin goes live, you want to be there because something's going on. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. The feeling is mutual. Thank you so much.